All right, so hopefully you are coming from the Unit 5, Day 3 warm-up, right? Hopefully you finished that. Now we are going to take a look at it real quick together. If you did not do this, there we are. If you did not take a second to do this, please do so now. Please pause the video and come back to it when you are done. Okay. In the diagram, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Remember that statement right there tells us everything. That tells us everything that we need to know. We are looking to find the measure of angle A, what segment FD is congruent to, and to rewrite the triangle congruent statement. Let's talk about it. Measure of angle A. Well, what is angle A congruent to? Angle A is congruent to angle D. Well, I don't have A and I don't have D. So I'm not going to find it that way. Right? There's going to be a little more work involved. Don't just say 80. I know a lot of you are just going to say 80 because, oh, well, it said 80 over there. A is congruent to D. A is right here, D is right here. We don't know D, but we can find another route to get there. What we do know is we do know that E is 80. I don't have 80 anywhere over here. Let's see if I can find a way to get 80 to this triangle. Well, angle B is congruent to angle E. That's what the statement is telling us. So that means that angle B must be 80 degrees. Now I have an 80-degree angle here, 40-degree angle, and my missing angle that I'm trying to look for. 180 minus 80 minus 40 gives us 60 degrees. The measure of angle A is 60 degrees. Segment FD. Let's take a look at our congruent statement here. FD, that is the last letter and the first letter. So it's the segment that includes the last letter and the first letter, which is actually right here. What's that going to be congruent to? Well, that's going to be AC or CA, right? And that's just matching those up, matching them together. Okay. From that, right, I just write segment CA. DF or FD. CA. Just matching them up, matching them together. Now I want to rewrite my triangle congruence. Triangle EDF. Well, what matched up with E? B. Whoops, sorry. E and B. So B is going to go first. What matched up with D? A. BA, and then that leaves C. Triangle EDF is congruent to triangle BAC, sorry. Even though we wrote a new statement, that doesn't mean that we're looking at different triangles. We're still looking at these two triangles. Everything is still congruent to what it was before. None of that changed. All that changed was the order. Write a congruent statement for the small triangles. It says to explain your reasoning, but I'll just explain it here for you. Okay, if I had to write a congruent statement, I would say that W and Y match up because they're both those angles are marked. They're also made by the marked 2 side and the marked 1 side, right? So that angle has to be congruent to that angle. Z has to be congruent to Z. That is our reflexive property. Angle Z, 90 degrees. Angle Z, 90 degrees. It's congruent to itself. Then, where do I go from here? Because that angle isn't marked and that angle isn't marked. Let me give you an example here. I'm going to say that this angle right here is, we'll just say 10 degrees. I already said that those angles are congruent. That is a 90-degree angle. That is a 90-degree angle. What would the measure of this angle be? If you said 80, good job. They are congruent to each other. They're what's remaining. That's got to be congruent. That's congruent to itself. 90-degree angles, 90 degrees. And then that last angle has to be congruent, right? Either that or they all don't add up to 180, which would make them not a triangle. So I know that X has to match up with X. Okay. Find X. We're dealing with an exterior angle problem. Okay, and I know this was day 1, not day 2, but we still need to visit it. We still need to see it. I do not have this angle. Right, if I did, let's say it's 20 degrees, right, that makes this problem a lot easier. It's not even a triangle problem anymore. It's an angle pairs problem. But that's not the case. I don't have that angle. So in order to find X, I need to take my exterior angle right here and set it equal to the sum of the two non-adjacent angles. That's 2x plus 10 and 3x. 2x plus 10 plus 3x is equal to 7x minus 50. From here, let's solve for x. This problem was a little extension problem. I get that it was a little tougher. Let's talk about it. So the only information that you have right away is that, let's see, let me take all this off. Congruent, congruent, congruent. Think about what type of triangle that is. Hopefully you said equiangular. Equiangular. 60 degrees, 60 degrees, 60 degrees. We talked about that right at the end of the day 1 notes. Now, because this is 60 degrees, what would that angle be? I wonder how I would find that. Well, they make a straight line. That means we have a linear pair, which is then why that angle right there is 120. 60, 60, 60. That's got to be 120. And I know that these two angles are congruent to one another. This one is probably the toughest part to see. I didn't know what these angles were at first. So maybe I just looked at them and I saw 120, and I know that one of them, we'll just call it X. Oh, and that's got to be congruent to the other one. Congruent, they're the same. I can call it X. What do they have to add up to? 180. 2x is equal to 60. That means X has to be 30. At least those angles, right? That's the X that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about that X right there. So maybe I should use a different letter. That's my fault. Maybe I should just use Y. Maybe I call both of those angles Y. I get X is equal to 30. Now once I have that, once I have that, that's a 30-degree angle, but it's also 8x minus 18. Set them equal to each other. I can explain this one a little more when I get back if you'd like, if you were confused on it. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm very confident that you're going to see a problem like this on the review. Even if I was only given this angle and that angle, that means I could still find that third one, and I have a linear pair, right? We're still going to visit some of those angle pairs that we've already taken a look at. Those aren't just going to go away. Okay. Now what I want you to do is I want you to move on. Nope, never mind. Where are we? There we are. I want you to move on to the Unit 5 Quiz 1 review that is posted on Schoology. When you are done, please submit that to Schoology so that I know that you were actually working on what you were supposed to be working on. And then from there, once you are done with that and have submitted it, you can move on to the homework, which is the Unit 5 Quiz 1 review on ClassKick. See you all next class. If you have any questions, please send me an email letting me know.